My name is Mark Himmelsbach. I'm one of the two founding partners at a company called Episode 4. We are 2 years old. We're a creative and media agency, boutique size. Our position is that we make hits for brands. And a lot of people say, well, that's a pretty bold claim. What do you mean by hits? And we think hits are things that cause cultural conversations. We think the world overuses data first, too much micro-targeting, too many algorithms, without anything to put into those algorithms, any content to put to have the end result come out. The hits we've made so far this year, just to show you some range, for AT&T, we are creating a documentary about tech life balance. So we are following two families who have grown up with their kids never using smartphones or social media. Yes, those kids actually exist. And we are following them into the world and seeing how they live in the world with and without technology. For example, one of the girls is going to Yale, and to get a roommate at Yale, you need to be on Facebook. She's never been on Facebook before, and she doesn't even know what that is, so how does she get a roommate? All the way to following people to technology addiction clinics to understand what technology is doing to our world. AT&T is funding this and has no role in the film. They said, we know this is an issue, please help us solve it. So we've been told that it will premiere on CNN coming this fall for back to school. So that's one side of a hit. Another one is for Charles Schwab. They have a golf sponsorship in Texas, and they said, help us reinvent the tournament. So as one of the prizes, we built a $500,000 muscle car to give away to the winning golfer. It was a 1973 Dodge Challenger that we restored. Schwab is a Challenger brand. You can see the connection. But that made it onto SportsCenter. So for us, those are the hits we make for brands. Of course, we use data after we make this content to promote it and get it to the right people. But we think that there is actually a scientific approach to making these hits for brands. So our premise is something we call Madonna. Madonna is one of the all-time hit makers ever. I will give you, we thought about naming it different things, but Madonna, I think, is a good homage to one of the greatest hit makers in the world. We don't call it the Madonna, because that has too many religious overtones. But Madonna, what Madonna is essentially we ask one simple question. We asked 100,000 Americans, if you had extra time or money, what would you do with it? And so if you think about what you would do with your extra time or money, it almost starts to become impossible to think about what that could mean. So in order to get this data, we surveyed these 100,000 Americans, and we asked them this question. We prompted them with what we call 300 different genres. So these genres are in music, podcasts, film, television, events, wine, etc. You can just pick some here. B-movie films, drum and bass music, family-oriented travel, improv, musical films, shopping, technology podcasts, telenovelas, man-in-the-street interviews, manifestos. We even have swag on there if you really want to give stuff away at conferences. But what we did is we asked we started with the US because we're a small company, 100,000 Americans, what would you do with your free time and money? We collected also 25 different demographic points, so we know where they live. We know exactly how old they are because we don't believe in age bands either. We asked political affiliation, sexual orientation, household income. We asked pretty much anything you ever want to know about a person. We also asked what their personality type is. There's a great Stanford research study that any brand can fit into one of 5 personality types. I don't know if anyone knows this research. My favorite example is if you were a rugged brand, you'd be like Patagonia. If you're an elegant brand, you'd be like Chanel. And how you market for Patagonia, a rugged brand, versus how you market for Chanel, an elegant brand, it could be wildly different. So in this survey, we prompted people with these. We had to do them in a lot of waves because there's a lot of survey fatigue when you start thinking about what you do with your free time and money. We asked them all these demographic questions, and we asked them to proxy their personality type. We prompted them with, how would your friends describe you? And with all of that data, we were able to, you could give us any audience. We use the research that any brand has sitting around a conference room, whoever their audience is or thinks they are. And we are able to then tell you what that person or people like that would do with their free time and money. Now, this is not prescriptive. When we ran this for AT&T, it did not say do a documentary that will scare you about your kids' technology usage. But it did, the genres that popped for AT&T, we call them genres, were documentary was one of the highest ones. So was horror. And so we took the idea of horror. No brand has yet to buy a horror idea, by the way. We took the idea of horror, documentary, and a few other genre types and created this documentary. So this survey gives us inspiration for creative ideas. It's a very useful tool for clients. We give genres that people expect, genres that are completely unexpected, and somewhere in between. But it gives us the range, the ability to go back to clients and say, yes, you know your audience, but do you know what your audience would do with their free time and money? So I'll just do a few quick examples just to show kind of how the tool works. And we can play a little, in that small room, we can play a little guessing game here. So one of our clients is JP Morgan, and they came to us and said, for ultra high net worth individuals, those are people who have $10 million or more of investable assets. You can judge yourself accordingly. They came to us and said, what would motivate them? Where should we be? Where should we show up? We think that the art galleries are tired. We think golf tournaments are boring. We're just not getting much traction there. And it turns out that golf is actually very polarizing. 49% of the audience are incredibly passionate about golf. The rest absolutely hate it. So if they wanted to go to golf, they would alienate half their population, or half their target audience. We also found out that they all love outdoor sports. But one of the most intriguing things for me, favorite musical genre for these high net worth individuals. Does anyone want to guess what that is?
Jazz.
Rap.
Jazz, okay, rap, what was that?
Rap.
Metal.
Metal? Nice, okay. Yeah, Live Nation might know. What?
Classic rock.
Classic rock, that's good. A lot of people say easy listening because they make fun of these people. It's EDM. So that's Skrillex, for those of you, I mean, you obviously all knew that was Skrillex, sorry. That's Skrillex. And so what's become, there's a lot, and Live Nation would know much more about this than I, but EDM has become much more mainstream, but it's also it's the most popular genre with people who have a lot of money. We also measure the level of passion people have around these genres. Does anyone want to, I don't have a slide for this, but does anyone want to guess the most passionate music genre for these high net worth individuals? Now you're all afraid, sorry, yeah. It's trap music, which is Southern hip hop, like Outkast. And so what becomes really fascinating is this doesn't lead us to, and we have the data to show this, so it's not like we're making stuff up. But this allows us to say, well, if your audience loves EDM, how about we do something that's a little safer for you? So it actually becomes an excellent selling technique. But also, we did a whole report for JP Morgan, and it turns out that people really don't like art museums anymore. They love art galleries, they love art exhibits, they love walking art tours. They still love art, they love performance art, improv, but they don't love art museums. So we were talking to the sponsorship person, and she said, I just spent blankety blank money on sponsoring art museums. Oh shit. And they still do, but it's like how you approach that sponsorship that becomes more interesting. And so this data validates decisions they've made, media they've placed, but also helps us sell in interesting creative ideas. Okay, two more. I promise I'm not trying to be mean here, but you know. All right. We talked about, we asked people how familiar you are with this genre, then how likely are you to spend your time and money. So the most passionate genre for married suburban African American women. Anyone want to guess this one? No. Thank you for your crowd participation. No. I'll give you a hint.
Broadway musical music.
Oh, that's a good guess. It's something that your teen and tween kids at home might be playing.
Video game.
Yeah, so the most passionate thing for married, suburban, African-American women is maybe not Fortnite, it's eSports. So we didn't ask specifically down to Fortnite. We then have the ability to panel people and ask them actually what games. But a lot of people, and rightly so, a lot of people think your boys and teen and tween men and women at home are very into this, and there's no doubt that they are. But they're actually the second most passionate group of people for eSports. And I don't know any company or any brand or anyone who's even thought about that this type of sponsorship for this type of group. So it just becomes a very fascinating way of looking at the world, like you said. And also I think that this is, when we dug in, we actually did a little research into this. This is when kids are at school and moms are at home. And so there's some passion there. There's also, you can play on your mobile phone. So it starts to make sense when you think about it, but I had no idea. This popped and we had to double check it. All right, last one. All right, this gets into a bit of that personality trait. So favorite genre for young, and we just cut off, we asked specific age, but for this conference, or for this talk, we just decided to bracket for you. young, adventurous Hispanics, both men and women. Anyone want to guess? I promise it's a safe room, safe space. Okay. Escape rooms. And so, which is bananas to me as well. So I don't know, has anyone done these escape rooms? But they're amazing community events, and they really are, they're available all over the country. And they are something that people are incredibly passionate about. And it also goes back to the idea of adventurous. When you take off adventurous, and you actually exclude that from the data set, this drops to the near bottom. So if you're looking at, when a brand comes in, often brands will come, at least to us, and say, we're kind of a boring brand, but we want to be a little adventurous, which is a very funny thing that a brand has that personality, but they want to lean into adventure. This becomes something to at least suggest or think about. It also shows we've asked genres that you would never even dream of thinking about, but for some reason we were surprised by Escape the Room as well. So with that was my 8 minutes. Thank you for the time, and see you on the panel soon.